Good morning, everyone. Okay, we're gonna chit chat about Aphrodite because I want you guys to know a little bit more about her and why I love her so much. I think there is this tendency with Aphrodite energy. I even see it with astrologers, and it actually drives me insane, which is why Daughter of Aphrodite exists. There's this tendency to see her as this vengeful, hateful, vain, jealous, mean god. And I get super frustrated about this because all of the gods in the Greek and Roman pantheons were terrible. They were like, by morality standards, they were terrible people. But the reason for that is because the Greeks and the Romans used mythology as a way to make sense of the violence and the cruelty that they were experiencing in their world. So I'm not going to go too much down a tangent, but okay, you have the goddess of love and beauty, right? During a time that was at times quite violent, right? And so, in a violent world, in a patriarchal world, we also have to remember that a lot of these Greek and Roman myths were their way of historical storytelling surrounding how the Greek and Roman pantheons, the patriarchal pantheons, these patriarchal gods, usurped or took over from these matriarchal lineages, families, communities, and spiritual practices and ways of being. And so, of course, those stories are violent, right? We have to understand that all of these gods have earlier origins where we get to see more of their true nature. So I like to think of like I still love Greek and Roman mythology. I read it literally daily. I'm always reading. Um, but I like to think of these are how these energies work and get distorted when they are not in a healthy environment. You know, when they're not in a healthy environment. So we have to give Aphrodite the same grace that we give Zeus, right? That we give, I mean, Zeus is the big one, but that we give Saturn, Kronos, right? We have to give her that same grace for understanding that um, her mythology doesn't always get to the core of who she is. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the core of who she is, and we're going to do that while I get ready. Although I don't know, I might get a little distracted. Well, I will try not to. Um, if you guys like this, and in the future you want me to like walk you through what I do to get ready, let me know, and we can do that. Um, okay, I don't have my little like hair clips, so let's just hope that I don't get anything in my hair, and if I do, whatever, it doesn't matter. So, Aphrodite is the goddess of love and war, right? And I bet you didn't know about the war part. She's the goddess of love and beauty and war. She has roots in the ancient Sumerian texts with Inanna, right? Wait, is Inanna Sumerian or Babylonian? Yeah. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Yeah, Inanna, premier Sumerian goddess of love, fertility, war, and political power. And you actually see this in Aphrodite and her connection to Libra. And most lawyers you know will have Libra placements. They value justice and fairness and equality. That is a leftover energetic from her roots as Inanna. There are other goddesses that she's connected to as well, but Inanna is, if we start pulling it back, probably one of the first times that we see her in myth. Other pantheons have their own goddesses of love and beauty who also are goddesses of war, and usually they're goddesses of magic. So these are like the Scandinavian Norse goddesses like Freya, Frigga. We have remnants or similarities of Aphrodite energy in other pantheons. Like we have Lakshmi, we have Oshun, like the Hawaiian goddess of the hula, which is Laka. Sorry, guys. We're doing like a get ready with me and a Google story time. Um, Hawaiian goddess. I used to know all of this off the top of my head, but here we are. Laka. Okay, I do still know it off the top of my head. So she is everywhere and has been everywhere. And love and beauty have always been tied to war. In Aphrodite's warlike nature, she was called Aphrodite Araya, and she was worshipped by the Spartans. Okay, so they would pray to her and go to her temple, and they even had their own like special temples for her before they went to war, because it was believed that she would protect them, right? And we need to understand that this makes sense. This makes sense from a psychological perspective. If you read Women Who Run with the Wolves and the chapter on the skeleton woman, that is a story of falling in love and simultaneously being afraid of dying. There is a metaphysical, transformative, alchemical thing that happens to you when you fall in love, where your old self dies. And the Aphrodite energy is responsible for alchemy. Okay, she is the only alchemical goddess. We have 7 primary goddesses that we work with from a feminine psyche perspective. We have the virgin goddesses, the vulnerable goddesses, and the alchemical goddess. And Aphrodite is the only alchemical goddess. And the reason that she is in her own category is because the virgin goddesses typically had to sacrifice romance, romantic relationships, and intimacy, like partnership, in order to be sovereign. So that's Artemis. I always get mixed up of like which pantheon is what, but Artemis, Hestia, and Athena, right? They all really were able to devote their lives to what they wanted to devote their lives to, which was their own selves in a lot of ways. Like, yes, they had these other projects and things that they were working on, but they essentially were not ever owned by a man and they were never married and they got to remain free. Right? They had relationships. I've seen some people be like, well, they didn't have it. No, they had relationships, especially Artemis. She loved her little love affair, and she had some really devastating heartbreak, actually. But she never fully merged, okay? And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the Aphrodite energy and alchemy, is that merging, that like falling in love so deeply that you change and they change and you don't always know where you end and where the other begins. That can sound like codependency, but it can also like there's a healthy version of that. There's a healthy version of merging. And so the virgin goddesses never merged, okay? The vulnerable goddesses did, but they merged in ways that caused them pain, lots of pain. So there we have Hera, Demeter, and Persephone, who all of their stories are overridden with stories of male violence. And so these are archetypes of women who value love, right? They value relationship, they value connection, they ultimately their goal is to have a family or a husband or a partner, and there's nothing wrong with any of that, right? The problem is that in a patriarchal world, like the Greco-Roman world, uh, there wasn't a lot of space for real love and real beauty in that. That was at a time when women were treated kind of like cattle, and we're kind of like married off to the best bidder. You know what I mean? Even Hera, who was a queen in her own right, she's the only goddess who was a queen before marriage. Even her, she was tricked into marrying Zeus. She did not want to marry that man. She did not want to marry that man. He begged her to marry him so they could have political power. He fed her this lie of like two powerful kingdoms coming together and them reigning them together and them being powerful together. And then he tore down all of her shrines and her temples and made everything about him and then cheated on her nonstop. And then we call her the scorned woman, right? We talk about her as if she's this hag, this shrew that is like always mad at Zeus. Yeah, because he ruined her life. right? So we have these stories of vulnerable goddesses, goddesses who did emerge and um, were like paid the price for that. And then we have Aphrodite in her own category, in her own lane. And this is the reason that I think Aphrodite energy is so important for every woman to cultivate because, yes, has the world shifted a lot in the last 2,000 years, 3,000 years? Definitely. Has it fully shifted? No. So, one of the ways that we can live beautiful, juicy, delicious lives where we are sovereign and in control, but still able to find places and pockets of intimacy, love, adoration, and affection, we have to activate the Aphrodite energy within us. So, the reason that she is the alchemical goddess and is in a league of her own, literally, is that she was able to have many relationships. She was married, she had children, she did all of the things that the vulnerable goddesses did, but her life belonged to her mostly. I will say I push back against that a little bit. Like she was forced to marry Hephaestus, and then everyone like gets mad at her and calls her a cheater because she cheated on him all the time. She didn't want to marry that man. There definitely were still places and times where she wasn't in full sovereignty, even then, even as powerful as she was. But comparatively, she had the most sovereignty, and the most love. You know, she had a lot of lovers, and a lot of beauty in her life. Her life was a life of beauty in a lot of ways. And so the Aphrodite woman, I think, is here to change the world because she shows us that we can have both. You can live a purposeful, meaningful life and do what matters to you. Because that's what the virgin goddesses do, right? They have this like capacity for single focus where they are like, I'm going to climb that mountain. I'm going to become a CEO. I'm going to become a politician. I'm gonna live alone in the woods and be a fairy nymph. That's very mystic. But they know what they want and they're very clear about it. Aphrodite does too. And so the Aphrodite woman teaches us, okay, you can have all of these things that you want and desire out of life, and you can do it with a partner. You can do it without fully decentering relationships. You can do it while still being a lover girl. I think a lot of times we feel like we have to choose, right? Am I the boss bitch CEO? Or am I a lover girl? The Aphrodite woman is both. So here are some of the qualities of how the Aphrodite archetype shows up in a real life human person because we are human. It's not going to fill up or it's not going to show up the exact same. But the Aphrodite woman is typically uh very self-loving, okay? Her top priority is herself, typically. You might not know that because she has a gift for loving others and she can be really charming, very present. You will notice that with Aphrodite women. That's probably why I'm struggling to do makeup and do this at the same time because I can't be fully present with you. There's a presence, an attunement. An Aphrodite woman is really gifted at seeing you. So if you have ever just encountered someone in the wild and you're like, boop, I feel like that person saw me. I feel like that person saw right into the heart of who I am. That was probably an Aphrodite woman or an Eros man, but that's another conversation. Um, Aphrodite women laugh easily, cry easily, express easily. Aphrodite women are usually highly creative. So these are the people that have always been drawn to creativity in some way. Ballet, dancing, painting, writing, poetry, music, or even just like creative problem solving in a business, right? Interior designers, fashion designers, things like that. There's an inherent love of beauty and there's an attunement to beauty and seeing beauty as a ritual. I get into this a little bit, I'm going to tell you guys about how really accepting and reclaiming the Aphrodite energy has literally changed my life. And beauty is a big part of that, but beauty becomes a ritual, becomes a protection spell in a way. And so you will notice that Aphrodite women claim a lot of these qualities that have been labeled as like too feminine, too much, right? Aphrodite women can be dramatic, we can be moody, we can be emotional, creative, sensitive, heart driven, beauty oriented, right? And so Aphrodite women need to reclaim all of these things, even within narratives that are constantly telling us that these are not going to make you money, they're not going to make you successful, they're not going to make you happy, da 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 da, right? So the Aphrodite woman is typically a very happy woman. And when she's happy, she's happy. When she's not, she's not. You will know. She's expressed, she's not really holding back on sharing herself with the world. She's also very independent. People forget this all of the time. I genuinely think that if Aphrodite hadn't been pushed into marriage, I don't think she would have got married at all. And if she had gotten married, it would have been to Aries or Mars, her like true love. But even then, I don't think that she would have gotten married. And so the Aphrodite woman wants to feel free to do life her way on her own terms. And where there's a challenge with the Aphrodite energy is you can feel kind of dropped by her in a way because when she's with you, she's with you. She is so present and there's this, energy that moves from her. And like this is, the process of falling in love, right? We call this Aphrodite consciousness. When Aphrodite's done there, she's done, and it's not this like this cold, distant, fuck you energy. It's oh, on to the next adventure. A lot of the current dating girlies, dating coach girlies are teaching you detachment. That is what naturally happens when you have tapped into Aphrodite energy. Okay. So let's summarize this. The Aphrodite woman is independent but deeply loving. She's usually really tapped into her sensuality and sexuality. Expressing that is really important for her. And it's not always sex, although I will say that most Aphrodite women have a really strong libido. They're very fertile. Like, there's like, that is a part of their lives. But sensuality is just the way that she moves through the world. Okay. She's just a sensual being. She's attuned to her senses, which is also why she likes the finer things. She's creative. She is usually maximizing her beauty to her fullest potential. She's relationship oriented. She's heart centered. She's a super connector. She's magnetic. She's confident and she's charismatic. So there's, if we had to wrap her up in a little bow. There's other qualities too, but those are my favorite ones. And so it's really important for every woman to connect to Aphrodite, even if you're not primarily an Aphrodite woman. I would love to know the numbers on this of like what the percentages are, but I don't know. I have no idea. I would imagine that the world is like probably 20% full of Aphrodite women, and the rest are, a mix of some of the other archetypes. But the reason that the Aphrodite archetype is so important is Aphrodite lives at the center of the psyche. Okay, there is this graphic called the Goddess Mandala, created by Demetra George, where she takes the 4 primary goddess asteroids and she lays them out on a wheel, similar to, you could overlay that on a birth chart. And she puts Venus at the center. And then the moon is surrounding everything because we are all lunar beings as women. And so Aphrodite lives at the center because she is where our vitality flows from. So you want to be a good mom, maybe you're a Demeter series woman and your focus is at the IC, at family. Having connection to your Venus energy not only will help you to create those children, but it also will help you to have the energy and the vitality to do that with joy and to not be burnt out and to do that from a place of sovereignty, right? Maybe you're a palace woman and you want to focus on your career. That's really important to you. Aphrodite energy helps you to have access to your own creative problem solving. It helps you to really know how to like collaborate in moments where you need to collaborate. Having connection to her really turns and activates the like the timeline in a way, because when you are connected to Aphrodite energy, everything flows to you. So it's way easier, right? And so every single woman, I think for our own um health, well-being, sense of self-worth, every single woman needs to have a connection to the Aphrodite frequency, even if you don't feel like, okay, I'm a lover girl, I'm a creative, I'm a muse, I'm an angel, I'm here to like change the world through love. Maybe that's not your path and that's okay. But at least changing your world through connecting to love is really important and crucial. So, I just wanted to end this with three things that have changed in my life since doing this work. I am an Aphrodite woman. I have always been. I'm an Aphrodite maiden, and most of us will have a combo of two top archetypes and priorities. And so, reclaiming and reconnecting to the Aphrodite energy has literally changed my life. Um, I realized I stopped doing the makeup thing. I'm not doing mascara on camera without a mirror. So, and that's my last thing today. It's pretty minimal day. Um, so the first thing that has changed is that my self-concept and my self-worth is so much higher than I ever imagined that it could be. When I stopped fighting these natural qualities like my sensitivity, how attuned to people I am, when I stopped judging myself and seeing myself as like a doormat, a people pleaser, someone with no identity, someone with no backbone, all of these things that we tend to label Aphrodite women. And when I realized that my gift is connection, and I also do, I've always, even when I thought when I was at the peak of my like people pleasing days, I have always had a very strong no when something is clearly a no for me, right? And so, really leaning into the Aphrodite energy, reclaiming it, attuning myself to it, and taking ownership of it has meant that my self worth is so high. Like, it is so high. Of course, I have, peaks and valleys with it. My luteal phase still gets me, but for the most part, like I really genuinely deeply love myself. And I really deeply genuinely believe that I deserve the world. And I really deeply genuinely believe that life is constantly trying to bless me and that anything that I want to experience in life I will, that it will come my way, right? So that's the first piece. The second one is that I'm really only attracting people, experiences, opportunities that are truly aligned now. I used to have, like, I'm also a manifesting generator, and so I used to have just tons of opportunities all the time, which is felt great and it was nice. But a lot of those were not aligned and they weren't for me. And now what I find is that the experiences that come to me and the people that come to me are so divinely aligned, like so on mission, so unmistakably for me that there's not a lot of anxiety in my life. Like I'm not really thinking, do I take this path or do I take this path anymore? The path has become so clear because I am so rooted in my own authenticity and self and my own sovereignty, right? Which is what the Aphrodite woman connects to. Um, that really only things that are for me can find me. And I'm able to really sit in the belief that anything that is for me will find me. And anything that is not for me will leave. Like I don't really have to worry about it. So I feel very peaceful. My life feels very, very, very peaceful. Um, I kind of touched on this a bit, but I feel very divinely protected and divinely guided. Um, and that has always been a bit of the case for me, but I think definitely connecting into the Aphrodite energy and working with her and developing self-trust. Because that's the thing, like Aphrodite mostly had a ton of self-trust. Like she was like, if I want to do that, I'm going to do that. And no one's going to tell me the ifs and or ands or buts around it. She very rarely did something she didn't want to do. And when she did, she was usually tricked into it. It wasn't because she was, felt like she had to. And so I feel very divinely protected and divinely guided. And then the last one is I make a lot more money. So when I had a disconnection to these Aphrodite qualities, um, I didn't value them in myself. I didn't value my creativity. I didn't value my capacity for connection, my networking skills, my capacity to hold space, my vision holding skills. I didn't value any of that because we live in a society that doesn't typically. Those are like women's things, girls' things, da 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 da. And so I didn't charge correctly for them. Um, and I didn't even know if I could or should. I see this with a lot of healers, actually. And so now, not only have okay, so imagine this. I'm in the right place at the right time. I'm meeting the right people. I'm meeting the right clients. I'm divinely protected and divinely guided. And then I don't have these weird hangups around people trying to pay me for my skills anymore. I recognize the gift that Aphrodite energy is to the world, and so I act accordingly. And not just in my work and in my business, but in dating and in relationships and all of those things. I really think that my energy is a blessing. My presence is a blessing. And so it allows me to have a lot more faith when it comes to my life path, sovereignty when it comes to choosing what I want to do and when I want to do it and how I want to do it, and self love, which sounds big and broad, but it just is big and broad. It has allowed me to build and have and experience a very beautiful life without feeling like I'm not deserving of it. Okay. Okay, that was a little bit longer than I wanted. Let me know your questions. Let me know anything that you want to know about Aphrodite, maybe some of the other goddesses. I can maybe make a few more videos around it. And if this was really activating for you and really exciting for you, you can join us inside Daughter of Aphrodite. This is my feminine astrology and embodiment training program. And it's a year long. It is so fun. We have genuinely just like so much fun inside. You will learn about your birth chart. You will learn about the archetypes in your birth chart. You will also learn about the female nervous system, relational depth psychology surrounding the feminine psyche. There's a whole smorgasbord of things for you to explore in there, and the doors are always open. Love you. Bye.